The morning the project was rejected, no one in the towering glass headquarters imagined they were witnessing the first crack in an empire worth billions. By lunchtime, one exhausted single father quietly packed his worn laptop into an old backpack and walked out of the building without raising his voice or looking back. 3 weeks later, the same company that had dismissed his work with a single signature watched its stock collapse, clients disappear, and years of reputation vanish almost overnight. Sometimes the greatest disasters do not begin with greed or crime. Sometimes they begin the moment someone chooses pride over kindness. Before we begin this emotional story, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that every hardworking parent deserves respect, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Story. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories that remind the world compassion still matters. Morning sunlight reflected across the polished windows of Alderon Technologies as employees hurried through the revolving doors carrying expensive coffee and expensive dreams. Among them walked Corbin Hale, a 36-year-old software architect whose tired eyes revealed years of sleepless nights rather than lack of ambition. His shirt was neatly pressed, though its cuffs had begun to fray. His shoes were polished, though their soles were wearing thin. Every careful detail reflected the quiet determination of a man who refused to let hardship define him. Corbin's life revolved around one person, his 8-year-old daughter, Marin. Since losing his wife to a sudden illness 4 years earlier, every sunrise had become a race against time. Breakfast had to be prepared before school. Homework had to be checked after work. Hospital bills from the past still lingered. Rent rose every year. Yet despite carrying responsibilities that would overwhelm many people, Corbin never stopped believing that hard work would eventually create a better future for his daughter. For nearly 18 months he had poured every spare hour into developing an innovative security platform capable of protecting companies from sophisticated cyber attacks before they even occurred. It wasn't simply another software update. It was a completely different way of detecting invisible threats by analyzing behavioral patterns instead of waiting for attacks to happen. He believed it could transform the future of digital security and save Alderon Technologies millions while protecting countless customers. The presentation day finally arrived beneath bright blue skies. Executives gathered inside an elegant conference room surrounded by massive screens and polished oak tables. At the head sat CEO Seraphine Voss, a woman celebrated throughout the business world for her sharp instincts and relentless confidence. Investors admired her decisiveness. Magazines praised her leadership. Employees feared disappointing her. Corbin presented every chart with careful confidence. Months of testing proved extraordinary results. Independent simulations predicted dramatic improvements over existing systems. Cost analysis showed enormous long-term savings. Every question received a thoughtful answer backed by evidence rather than emotion. But before the final slide even appeared, Seraphine had already made up her mind. She believed the proposal was too unconventional, too risky, and too dependent on theories that challenged the company's existing business model. More importantly, accepting Corbin's project would mean admitting that years of expensive development under senior executives had been heading in the wrong direction. Protecting corporate pride suddenly became more important than discovering the truth. The rejection lasted less than 60 seconds. The room fell silent. Some executives looked away. Others quietly closed their notebooks. Corbin gathered his papers without arguing. He thanked everyone for their time, picked up his aging backpack, and walked through the bright hallway where employees continued chatting about promotions, bonuses, and weekend vacations. Nobody noticed the weight carried on his shoulders as he stepped outside into the warm afternoon sunlight. That evening he returned home to the tiny apartment where Marin waited beside the kitchen table covered with school drawings and unfinished homework. She smiled the moment he entered, believing every difficult day became easier simply because her father had come home safely. Corbin forced a smile despite the disappointment crushing his heart. Together they cooked simple pasta, laughed over silly stories from school, and watched the sunset paint golden colors across nearby rooftops. Marin never knew the project her father had sacrificed countless nights creating had disappeared in a single meeting. The next morning life continued exactly as before. Corbin still completed every assignment with professionalism. He still arrived early. He still stayed late. He simply stopped believing Alderaan was the place where innovation truly mattered. 3 weeks passed. Summer mornings grew warmer. The city buzzed beneath bright daylight as employees filled office towers without suspecting disaster had already begun. A sophisticated cybercriminal organization launched an unprecedented attack targeting Alderaan's largest international clients. Existing security systems failed to recognize the attack because it unfolded gradually, disguising itself as normal employee behavior. Every traditional defense responded exactly as designed, yet every defense responded too late. Sensitive customer information disappeared. Critical servers shut down. Emergency systems malfunctioned. Financial records became inaccessible. News spread across international media before executives even understood the full scale of the catastrophe. Stock prices plunged. Investors panicked. Customers canceled contracts worth hundreds of millions. Government investigations began almost immediately. Inside the executive boardroom, fear replaced confidence. Engineers worked around the clock. Consultants demanded enormous fees. Nothing stopped the collapse. During one desperate emergency review, an exhausted analyst uncovered archived files connected to Corbin's rejected proposal. Hidden within those forgotten documents was a detailed simulation predicting almost the exact attack now destroying the company. Even more astonishing, the proposed system included prevention methods capable of identifying the threat weeks before it reached critical systems. Silence consumed the room. No one spoke. Every executive slowly realized the company had not fallen because the attack was unstoppable. It had fallen because they refused to listen. Seraphine stared at the presentation she had dismissed less than a month earlier. For the first time in years, certainty disappeared from her face. She replayed the meeting repeatedly inside her mind, remembering how quickly she had rejected an employee whose greatest mistake had been thinking differently. Finding Corbin suddenly became the company's highest priority. Yet he had already resigned quietly 2 days after the rejection. He accepted a modest position at a small nonprofit cybersecurity research center focused on protecting schools, hospitals, and charities that could never afford expensive commercial software. The salary was lower. The office was smaller. The equipment was outdated. But for the first time in years, his ideas were welcomed instead of feared. When Seraphine finally visited the nonprofit headquarters herself, she expected anger, resentment, or perhaps quiet satisfaction. Instead she found Corbin patiently helping college interns solve programming problems while sunlight poured through simple office windows overlooking a public park. The contrast overwhelmed her. He had every reason to celebrate Alderaan's failure. Yet he remained exactly the same humble father she had underestimated. Looking around the modest office, Seraphine realized genuine leadership could not be measured by luxury offices, expensive suits, or magazine covers. It was measured by how people treated others when nobody important was watching. Corbin had built respect instead of status. He had built trust instead of fear. He had built hope instead of ego. As the investigation continued, Alderaan's internal culture faced intense public criticism. Former employees described years of ignored ideas, dismissed warnings, and leadership driven more by appearances than honest collaboration. Talented innovators had quietly left long before the crisis, taking creativity with them. The cyber attack had merely exposed problems that had existed for years beneath polished marketing campaigns and impressive quarterly reports. Seraphine accepted responsibility publicly. She refused to blame hackers alone. She admitted leadership failures, apologized to employees, investors, and customers, and resigned from her position before the board requested it. Her speech surprised financial analysts because it contained no excuses, only accountability. It became one of the rare moments when corporate leadership acknowledged that arrogance can be more destructive than any external threat. Meanwhile, Corbyn never chased revenge or recognition. His non-profit security platform quickly attracted hospitals, schools, and community organizations that desperately needed affordable protection. Volunteers joined his mission. Young engineers admired his integrity more than his technical brilliance. Universities invited him to speak about ethical innovation, humility, and perseverance. At home, life slowly improved. Marin watched her father smile more often. Bills became easier to manage. Weekend mornings were no longer filled with anxious calculations about overdue payments. Instead, they were spent walking through sunny parks, feeding birds near peaceful lakes, visiting local libraries, and dreaming about futures no longer clouded by fear. One afternoon, while attending a community technology awards ceremony, Corbyn received recognition not for bringing down a corporation, but for creating technology that protected vulnerable organizations around the country. The standing ovation lasted several minutes. As applause echoed through the bright auditorium, his eyes searched only for one face. Marin stood proudly in the front row, clapping with tears of happiness shining in her eyes. She had witnessed every sacrifice. Every late night. Every silent disappointment. Every morning her father left before sunrise, determined to keep moving forward despite rejection. In that moment, no corporate title could ever equal the pride reflected on her face. Sometimes success arrives disguised as rejection. Sometimes losing the opportunity we desperately wanted becomes the path toward the purpose we were truly meant to discover. Corbyn never destroyed Alderaan Technologies. Its own unwillingness to value honesty, humility, and fresh ideas caused the collapse. His story became a reminder shared across boardrooms and classrooms alike that leadership is never about always being right. It is about remaining wise enough to recognize brilliance wherever it appears, regardless of job title, background, or circumstance. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness, humility, and perseverance still matter, please like this video, share it with your family and friends, leave a comment telling us what lesson inspired you the most, and subscribe to Kindness Tales Story so more people can discover stories that restore hope. Special request, please comment below with the words, "Kindness always wins," if you believe one act of respect can change someone's entire future. As the golden afternoon sunlight faded beyond the city skyline, Corbyn walked home holding Marin's hand, knowing that the greatest victories are not measured by wealth, power, or applause. They are measured by the lives we protect, the people we lift when they are struggling, and the courage to remain kind even after the world has been unkind to us. And somewhere beyond the noise of broken companies and forgotten headlines, a little girl looked up at her father and saw not a rejected employee, but the strongest hero she would ever know. That quiet, ordinary walk beneath the warm daylight became the happiest ending either of them could have imagined, proving that while pride can bring down even the largest company, love, integrity, and compassion will always build something far greater.